Happy Thursday, Smite fans. You're watching the EU SCC. A little bit later on today, we'll have the continuation of the SPL Season 8 group stage. My name is Dolson. Goremizer is with me, and Gore, whether you're a fan of the SCC, the SPL, or more than likely a fan of both, plenty of Smite action for all the fans out there today.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. Like you said, the continuation of the group stages later today, getting to kind of reset the slots for a lot of those teams, like people who are at the very bottom that would not have gone to playoffs maybe otherwise, have that shot to and chance to maybe kind of break out in these group stages, top 3 of each of those going to the playoffs. And then when it comes to the SCC, I mean, just really interesting games with things that have been going. Again, the top 2 is what matters most. I believe most of these teams are locked in. Can't remember if anybody can really switch around at this point. I think actually Europe might be one of the few places where the top 2 can shift, and I think it's because of accounting department and Pandemonium.
Yeah,
so
right.
This is actually a pretty high-stakes match for accounting department.
And it's a dream scenario, you'd think, for accounting department going up against Just F6, who just last week we've been told won their first game of the phase so far. So if you're accounting department, you're trying to hold on to that top 2 spot, you're going up against a team in Just F6 who, granted, up until last week, had found little to no success so far here in the SCC. Now, this Just F6 team, one thing we have seen, Gore, is although they've been losing, and again, we got to harp on the one win that they were able to grab, but though they've been losing, they have been putting up fights in their matchups. They've been pushovers entirely so far throughout the phase. So it could be an interesting matchup here for accounting department if they don't have their wits about them.
It's maybe the worst consolation prize I can give you, and we're going to see a lot of highlights like this. Like, this is at their base, and this is what I will give them a lot of credit for. They are really awesome at cool fights that happen, unfortunately, in their Titan ring. It just seems that like they need to expand that out. It's a really weird thing to be good at. And I think they, like you said, shown a lot of talent. Of course, they've had some roster swaps throughout this entire split as well. You know, Listimics originally, or not Listimics, Roulat as their jungler early on definitely seemed to kind of shift the team dynamic, picking up Worst Turtle and kind of redirecting where they want to go. And by then, they were already kind of locked in for maybe those bottom 3. It didn't seem like they were necessarily going to jump towards the top. I actually think the addition of Worst Turtle, as well as the way this team has been playing, has given them a lot of chance to rise. Now, is that enough to beat a team like Accounting Department, who's the number 2? Maybe not today, but I do think this is a team that, whether or not like relegations, what have you, happens there, I do expect to see more of them as long as they stick together.
And look, I think that's one thing Aggro and I talked about the week of those roster swaps for this Just F6 team is, even though you're down and at the time more than likely out, the fact that you're still making changes, trying to improve, shows that this team realizes that Phase 1 of the SCC is not going to be their stomping ground. It's looking towards qualifying. It's looking towards the rest of this year of SCC play. And I think that shows the willingness to improve, and that's what's important for Just F6 moving forward. Now, accounting department have their eyes set on something a little bit more important, and that is the playoffs here in the SCC. We've talked about those top 2 spots being so important. Elysium has had a pretty firm grasp on that top spot throughout most of the phase so far. But accounting department and Pandemonium kind of going back and forth for that number 2 spot is really where the action has been happening over the last few weeks. And with the names that this accounting department team has on it, Gore, it's no surprise that they've been in those top couple of spots all phase long.
Yeah, they were able to give Elysium some trouble last week, although you can see here Ice was running the Sylvanas jungle at one point. There were some interesting tactics that were brought out by the accounting department. And I dislike saying it this way, but this one was a very big jungle diff game when it comes through. Like, Ice did not really stand up to perform to the level I think that you needed. I think both games ended up being like 4 levels down at one point. Wasn't able to impact a lot of kills, especially compared to what Adapting was bringing, what Angry was able to accomplish. And I think Elysium just played cleaner, and I do think that's more on the fact that Elysium is going to play incredibly well than it was accounting department necessarily necessarily playing poorly. I expect that Ice as well as the rest of accounting department are going to look really solid today, especially after that loss. They tried some things out against the #1 team in Europe. They didn't quite work out, but that doesn't necessarily mean they won't work in general. I'm excited to see what they can bring us today.
Gore, without further ado, let's jump in to picks and bans for game number 1, and let's see if Sylvanas Jungle is going to rear his head again here today. My initial reaction is most likely not. And this is one of those types of games where it's so important for accounting department to kind of bear down, get the job done. It's so easy, and this is kind of an all sports type thing where it's so easy to overlook opponents that are on the opposite end of the standings from you, but in an important matchup like this, where this is the game where you buy one game of separation for the time being from Pandemonium, it's no holds barred, right? I mean, you got to make sure that you cross the finish line in a comfortable manner if you're accounting department. So I think probably relatively clean in picks and bans is what I'm expecting here so far. What I was not expecting, Gore, admittedly, seeing this Gilgamesh banned out, we saw it at the SPL level a good bit last week. Saw some success. I mean, Jungle felt kind of back and forth. I don't know if you have a different take on that. I mean, Jungle, I feel like dead even in the KDA department is kind of what I got used to. It was like 4-4-4, like 8-8-8. You know, like he was doing a lot of killing but doing a lot of dying, but still powerful enough maybe to ban away.
And that actually, what flabbergasts me the most, I want to talk about this Gilgamesh, but the fact that King Arthur was picked up over Tiamat right now is definitely, I think, a good showcase for how important he is going to be, and something that you need to maybe recognize, at least in terms of King Arthur. I'm also going to give a shout-out, because mentioning the Gilgamesh, going back to it, was it BurjGG, BURJGG on Twitter, tweets out every now and then some super serious SPL stats. Yeah. And my favorite had to be the 148 drop kicks during Gilgamesh's first week last week, which was very, very fun to just have that number available for it. And I had to pull that up. And of course, I'd recommend following anybody that posts stats, because I really like those myself. But it's interesting to me, Dave, that you got, like, I mean, he comes through. He's really strong. What we saw last week, though, is Tiamat's just as strong, and guessing we don't see on board yet.
Yeah, Tiamat not picked up, and more than likely won't be picked up by Just F6 as the Scylla has been locked in. This is something, remember, in a lot of their replays, this Just F6 team, they like this Scylla pick. Soto's out of the mid lane can perform well on this pick. This is a team that has done well volleying that CC together with a flurry of damage from the Scylla on the back end, so I don't think any surprise there seeing the Scylla. Definitely, though, a surprise that we're not seeing the Tiamat on the other side. More intrigue, Gore, in the picks and bans so far as Ares gets locked in here for the accounting department, although it's Kalas, so I think it's pretty fair to expect maybe that pick out of his wheelhouse. And then the Chernobog first pick, I think, still somewhat surprising. We were doing a lot of discussing about the Gilgamesh, the King Arthur, things like that, the lack of Tiamat. Chernobog going first kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really solid pick still, and I think that we're going to get to see a lot of interesting global ults throughout all of this. It's one of the things we've seen a lot of Rise and other hunters, you know, the Heimdall, the Onhers, etc., etc. But right. Chernobog Apollo still have a lot of those strengths they had at the beginning of the year. In fact, depending on how you chop it, they might be a little stronger now and just not quite at that level where everybody's picking them up. I think they're just under that precipice of getting locked in more often. I think Chernobog fits in really well with the style we've seen out of accounting department in the past. I think it fits really well with this team comp as well. No matter where Osiris, Ares, Raven are to start a fight, no matter what they have for mid, Chernobog's going to be able to help them out, whether he's actually teleporting in or if he's just ulting to get the slows out there. It's going to be very, very well applied.
And then some safety as well with the Chernobog if the King Arthur finds his way into the back line, which tends to happen, whether or not you like it, or the set is able to find some dive, then Chernobog is able to play somewhat safely there. Also flying under the radar, Gore, is the fact that Giannis was still around. Giannis has become kind of a blanket ban here. I mean, for a while in the SPL, it was this guy can play Giannis, this player can play Giannis, so let's take Giannis away from those specific players. It's kind of expanded to what feels like everyone now at this point. You know, Giannis is one of those picks that you need to be able to play just because of the versatility and the damage that it can provide. So Tiamat taken away, Giannis in the second wave, and that means Wolfie out of the mid lane is going to have to go somewhere a little bit different. And Giannis, no, he's banned, as I've said 9 times. Agni, then, is the answer here, Gore. Game 1 for Wolfie.
It's the interesting thing to see. Wolfie, loves the Agni special, is the way I can say it. And I was looking it up. 15 games banned last week in the SBL for Giannis, so definitely someone that we've been a little more accustomed to not talking about because he's not supposed to be allowed, right? And so interesting that he was still available. Again, him and Tiamat getting banned in the second phase of bans is something that's going to be a little more interesting here. But Wolfie, look, this is a team, accounting department play their game better than they play meta Smite, if that makes sense. Like, I don't necessarily think, okay, let's give Wolfie Tiamat, let's give Ice, whoever you would say is, you know, intrinsically like Set, or whoever you look at as quote-unquote the best jungler. We don't need Deathwalker on King Arthur Cucullin every single game. We don't need Okeanos and Kalas to play the quote-unquote meta duo lane. Like, they can just play their game. Kalas's Ares is way more scary to me than Kalas's Fafnir, let's say. And I think Wolfie's Agni here is going to be a much more, maybe not prolific killer, but is going to be a great setup machine for this team. And when you have Raven already on your team, you've got Deathwalker, who kind of turns into a carry when he plays things like the Osiris. I think this is setting themselves up for success. But I will say, on the other side, Just F6 got the meta team, right? Like, they have the team that theoretically should just be able to win blanket matchups.
Well, I think that's always the phrasing that I like to look for out of picks and bans, especially in a matchup of a top team to a bottom team, is if you're the bottom team, you need to give yourself a chance out of picks and bans. If you're already losing before the game even starts, then you don't have a chance for an upset. So Just F6 have absolutely given themselves a shot with the way that they've drafted here. I think Worst Turtle, good on the set pick. We've seen him perform towards a pretty high level here at the SCC on this set. So I have high hopes here. It'll be an interesting matchup, Gore. The Robin versus the Set out of the jungle. You expect Ice to find some of that impact here pretty early on, so Worst Turtle's going to have to try to keep pace.
It's going to be a little harder, I think, overall. Like, the Set takes a little while to get online compared to Robin. Like, this is where I expect to see Ice getting aggressive, and this is exactly what I want to see out of him.
Ice just walking in to the Just F6 jungle here. No concern at all. The mid laners will rotate over and help out. Crush will not secure these camps. Worst Turtle will, though. Has Ice bit off a little bit too much. Overhead kick will get him out of the fray just for a moment, but down to half HP. Used a bit of his disengage. You got to be careful, though, if you're Worst Turtle here, not to overextend the dash away from Wolfie to separate out this fight. And Ice felt confident there for a moment, Gore, but the moment the mid laners joined in, the junglers had to disengage.
And I think it's somewhere that you could really look at, like, Ice level 3 Robin, good enough to fight. Especially a 1v1. Now, a 1v2, maybe even a 2v2 when your second is technically Agni. Maybe not so much when Crush is involved. Once Scylla gets in there, the scales start to tip a little bit more in their favor. And so it does make things, I think, appropriate call, right? Run down Set, make Worst Turtle feel not embarrassed, but like ashamed of his own jungle. Like, oh man, I can't clear that. Like, I just can't do anything here. And take advantage of the fact that you have that earlier, like, level jump than what Worst Turtle's going to have. Takes, what, 2 more levels now that he's hit level 4 before we really start to see him have the same potency. And take advantage of it. Try to do whatever you can. Even if it doesn't result in kills, stripping away farm is going to be maybe the most important thing you can do early on.
Ooh, Ice has found some good damage on Sotos here. I think for a brief moment there, and maybe even still now, continuing a tier 1 dive, but with Scylla, a Sick'em Crush combo would likely put you down, especially if you're within tower range there. So Ice and Wolfie playing this one slow. Everyone here in the mid lane is ticked over to level 5 except for Sotos, so maybe a chance for Ice and Wolfie to fight, but Sotos surely will play safe enough to get this wave in and move himself over to level 5. Feels like the pressure slowly, I mean, nothing palpable yet, but slowly pushing against Just F6 slightly. A moment ago, you saw Deathwalker on the blue buff, but as I say that, Worst Turtle walks forward and runs down Wolfie. That is the consummate caster's curse there. The second I think Just F6 are on the back foot. Accounting department, prove me wrong. And Worst Turtle finds first blood, but Ice trying to close the gap to answer back.
And they're not going to be able to lock down Set. That's the glory of Set. Although maybe I spoke too soon this time around. Okeanos decides to run around. But I don't know, Dave. This seems dangerous.
Gotta be a kill here. And Kalas is just going to burn down Worst Turtle. So the duo lane, in a quick flurry, rotates over towards mid. And that's the answer back. Accounting department needed. Maybe not wanted. You don't ideally have that kill on the Ares. Maybe Okeanos is able to pick it up after using the ultimate to get over there. But getting the kill nonetheless is important, especially now that Ice is going to be able to get back onto the map a little bit quicker than Worst Turtle, find some farm over here in solo, and give himself a 1-level lead over his jungle counterpart.
Now, it's interesting to think, though, First Blood Bounty, that experience, that gold, 200 up for just F6 total, and still a level down, technically, for Worst Turtle. So all of the arguments I was about to make in favor of him getting that really does just equalize him out with where Ice has been. That's something, again, last week, I think we didn't get to see full Ice potential. I'm expecting he's going to be coming back and maybe punching a little harder this time around. But they need a couple more team fights to go their way and a little bit more in their favor, right? I mean, that's a lot of heavy investment to get a simple return kill on the jungler. At the end of the day, like, Sodos, you know, right now, almost dead, definitely in danger, and, you know, well, had to back off to base at least. I think there's a lot of potential, and I think Accounting Department's team fight gets better and better the longer the game goes on. Agni will do more damage, his stuns will be more prevalent, you'll have more follow-up for him, and things like that. But I need, like, if you're going to be second place, you got to cement it, and you got to cement it real hard, right? Like, you can't be stressing too hard about it. And I think this is their chance to really kind of solidify themselves as a top team in Europe and showcase why they deserve to sit up at the top.
Yep. Definitely bounced back well after dropping First Blood. Wolfie did over in the mid lane. Maybe to be expected once the Agni dashes down. Easy to kind of collapse on and find that pressure. Been quiet over on the right-hand side of the map, outside a little bit of pressure that Deathwalker had put in, but Gore, maybe that's just what we're supposed to get used to nowadays. I think in a couple SPL games we saw heavy right side pressure, a couple blue buff invades maybe. But it feels like over the last few weeks we've seen this fight mindset over the red buff, over the purple buff, and then trying to brawl out there in the mid lane. So maybe no surprise that that's where we've seen most of the action spring up here sub 10 minutes.
This is where things get important. Well, right as they start that, Collis is going to be able to blink in and at least get one.
Oh man, Worst Turtle does not have beads for 5 seconds. That just feels real bad. Collis grabs the pull, grabs the kill onto Worst Turtle, whose beads have just now come back up. And that's the dream, right? You talk so often about these Ares compositions. Getting the beads off of the members of Just F6 is what's going to be so important for Collis to find big value here, and it's a perfect example.
And look at the opening that's been created, right? Collis goes in, gets the beads. Yeah, maybe they're back up for Worst Turtle. Sodos doesn't have them. Guess who's going to be able to have lockdown? Oh, well, there's immense slows from Osiris. Technically a stun in there as well. Ice has a root. You have Wolfie with stuns, Okeanos with slows. Like, a lot of control on the side of Accounting Department to be able to find different ways to lock down Just F6. It's also interesting that Ares, of all people, is the one that's 2-0. Granted, who was it, like Jake last week, I know, who went like 8-1-12 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, right,
like, had a super ridiculously large KDA on Ares. I think Collis is definitely being able to step into the same shoes here and maybe fill the quote-unquote carry support.
Bring the freeze. Can we talk about the like, well, no, we can't because it's SCC. I want to talk about the spring that the Bolts have had over these last few weeks. Now technically control of Group A there on the SPO with the Leviathans, as an I'm a Monster from Sodos won't find the kill, but he's overextended, and Wolfie will thank him for it. Now the Accounting Department off to a 2-kill separation over Just F6. Wolfie picking up 1 and an assist. Feels like Sodos just kind of tunnel visioned there, Gore. Looked for the kills, saw a couple low health members under an I'm a Monster, and went for it.
Yeah, unfortunately, tunnel vision never truly pays off here. The big thing is, at least that I'm starting to see, slowly growing to about 1,500 gold in Accounting Department, right? 2 kills is enough, but that gold lead, that's really going to start kind of knocking things home. About 1,250 more like. So almost there, not quite. Same thing there for the experience, though. And there's still a Scorpion hanging out on left. You know, the Gorp is sitting kindly in his pit waiting for someone, let's say Okeanos, to come over and take him. This should take him over to that 1,500 mark, but not only that, this is a team that, with the fights going the way they are, specifically getting rid of I'm a Monsters the way they are as well, they could start looking towards Furies.
Oh man, look at Wolfie, the pressure he's put on Sodos here. No chance for Sodos. And the mid lane onslaught continues here, Gore. The Scylla has just been plucked time and time and time again. And the beads, look at them, just now off of cooldown. So whether that's calculated by Accounting Department, or just luck, or somewhere in between, playing around those beads cooldowns has been the name of the game for Accounting Department so far. 1 onto Worst Turtle, 1 onto Sodos, both of those deaths, less than 5 seconds left on the beads coming back at the time of the kill. So, you know, that's an important thing for the accounting department to be able to continue here. A little bit different, though, out of the mid lane build score. We've gotten used to seeing Charon's coin, maybe into Spear the Magus, something similar. Rod up to Hootie was so popular early on in Season 8. Wolfie still sees some value there in that pick.
And I kind of like this. I feel like Agni benefits from just kind of pure power here, and admittedly early on, like with the way the Agni bombs are going to be hitting, the stuns and the connection, plus the amount of burn damage he did to Sodas. I mean, look at that one meteor that he dropped right there. It's just so clean in terms of his damage application. I don't know that you need to worry too much about Pin just yet, and it seems like he's riding on the wave that it's just going to be insane power.
Yeah, Soto's not feeling great so far. 10.5 or so minutes into this game, 2 levels down to his mid lane counterpart, 0-2, and then Worst Turtle has the other 2 deaths there out of the jungle. Unfortunately, this side of the map not feeling any better for Just F6 unless Worst Turtle's able to pick up this kill onto Okeanos. He's going to have to drop down elsewhere, you'd think. Nobody drops down by Toddy and grabs the kill. Worst Turtle's going to trade things back, and Gore, maybe that's best case scenario.
I mean, that's exactly the kind of kill you want to find. Okeanos has a lead over Toddy. Granted, 1-for-1 is not always the worst, but you stop at least Okeanos from being able to continue farming, get even further ahead. And admittedly, you get what I would call is a much-needed kill on the Worst Turtle. Maybe not, like you said, the best scenario that you're happy with it, but it's something. It's a consolation prize. You're walking away with it. Technically now slightly ahead of Ice Ice in terms of level. We'll see how long that lasts here for Worst Turtle. I want to see him be more proactive as well. I think we're starting to see this. I mean, you're playing set. You've got Scylla. You've got King Arthur. I want to see you get aggressive. I want to see you fight because I think this is a composition that benefits from the team fights and grouping up.
Yep.
Just F6, especially fresh off a win last week, should be able to start feeling themselves a little more confident in terms of when they take these fights and engagements.
You would think so. Alas walks towards Toddy here, who will airstrike away and notice the beads. 1.5 or so off of cooldown, so Kalas realizes it's burn the ultimate or grab a kill in all likelihood on Toddy there. Deathwalker slowly been feeling comfortable here in this lane. We've seen some blue buff invades, and it's just been Deathwalker kind of walking himself forward with a few members of accounting department close by. Normally I'd question the relative strength of an Osiris rotating into these fights versus a King Arthur. The fact that it's Deathwalker, Gore, I think gives you maybe a little bit more confidence in the Osiris and the ability to find some of that frontline stickiness with the likes of the King Arthur on the other side.
That's one of those things that's really interesting, right? Like, in a vacuum, in a blank space with players, like the same player equals skill playing these gods, King Arthur theoretically comes in and wins. But then Deathwalker's Osiris is just better in the matchup than I'm going to give Lestimic's King Arthur credit for, and I think that's something that we're going to not only have seen for 12-ish minutes, but continue to see. And yeah, maybe King Arthur's still a little bit of a lane bully, still at least keeping pace, and that's honestly a big boon for Lestimic's here. Like you said, once it starts rotating team fights, it's the impact they have there that's going to make a big difference. And Deathwalker's Osiris at least has in the past continually proved to be something a lot more deadly than pretty much anybody else's top meta picks. So it'll be fun to watch. So that being said, I want to give Lestimic's benefit of the doubt. King Arthur has been an absolute just menace lately.
Worst Turtle has beads, but elects not to use them until after he's already been pulled in. And whether or not the timing was correct down to the pinpoint doesn't really matter because Worst Turtle was able to survive, but the beads are down. So Kalas burning a pair of beads, or a set of beads, I guess, for himself here. The ultimate will be back before those beads are, so you consider that maybe a worthwhile trade for accounting department.
And honestly, I think not only worthwhile for them, but you see Worst Turtle, like, he doesn't use them at first. It might be like a question mark moment of like, why not? But it's that, can I live through this without having to use my beads? Like, how much follow-up do you really got over there? The answer was enough, right? And it caused him a little bit of trouble. Speaking of trouble, Deathwalker is in at half health trying to fight 1v2.
Is he in trouble? Yes, he is for the time being. There's maybe a moment where he's able to turn this fight around, maybe with the rest of the team. He will be. Okeanos has ulted over from the left-hand side of the map and will pick up a return kill now for the accounting department. 1-for-1 trade. That's been the name of the game, hasn't it? Accounting department has gotten all these free kills throughout this game. But if they lose a team member, it seems like they are consistently trading out at least one kill. They haven't really given anything over for free outside of the first blood here in this game.
I mean, that's something that I think is maybe more beneficial for just F6. I guess for accounting department, technically it means they stay ahead, but you already have the lead. If just F6 are trading 1-for-1, somebody is getting a little bit of gold out of it on their team and should be pretty happy about it. But that's the biggest problem I think Just F6 are also going to be facing. They have a coordinated gank on an overextended Deathwalker to lock him down between the Tier 1 and Tier 2, and they get the kill. And within seconds of that starting, accounting department have 2 people who have made a full rotation over there. That's what Okeanos' strength, that Chernobog's strength is really going to be, which is that just kind of instant transmission, I can be over there if I want to be, in the middle of a team fight that just causes so much stress and trouble for them in the middle of anything. Like that engagement, you're never fighting a 2v1. You're fighting a 2v2 potentially, right? It's a 2v1 with an asterisk on it. That you never have that true numbers advantage. It's always at least even.
It does feel that way. It's very immediate. You talk about the likes of Apollo, that ultimate has to channel for a little while. Still global pressure. But Chernobog feels quite literally like up, down, and he's there, and can't really say much about it now if you're just F6. Worst Turtle's done a good job, though, keeping pace with Ice, even one level ahead, as you mentioned earlier on there, Gore. Unfortunately, things have remained the same from the mid lane on over to the left for just F6. It's 2, sometimes 3 levels out of the mid lane that Wolfie is ahead of Sodos. 1, sometimes 2 levels that Kalas is ahead, and Okeanos, with all those rotations that Jingwei just can't keep up with, has pulled a 1-level lead on this Chernobog. Rotwin swinging away at the Gold Fury a couple of times, but no real chance for him to do that. But with that pressure, Gore, mid to left side of the map, with those types of leads, maybe that gives accounting department a little extra confidence starting up this Gold Fury here soon.
The biggest issue is always going to be Sodos, though. I mean, Agni, look, same conversation I'll have with like a Merlin, where Agni's got a great ult. It is not your standard secure ultimate. I mean, you can drop all 3 meteors and still barely scratch the amount of damage that Sodos is going to be able to do with one I'm a Monster, right? So you really have to be cautious around it. I think team fight department-wise and lead-wise, definitely a spot where if I'm accounting department, I'm looking for a fight. And definitely going to be able to force an issue around a, say, Pyromancer, Gold Fury, maybe even a Fire Giant relatively soon, depending on where they want to put that pressure. But I think they have to get rid of Sodos, or at least force Sodos out of the fight before they can start it up truly and feel like they have confidence in securing the objective.
Right, yeah, that's a great point there, Gore. Or even from behind, I'm a Monster does massive burst damage.
Yeah.
Some penetration built in as well, percent pen, some flat pen on top of it, so Sodos will be swinging despite being a few levels down of the counterpart there in the mid lane. But it's all about creating that scenario, right? We already saw Sodos try to form that situation for himself, where he walked forward, tried to I'm a Monster, and was kind of left alone there on an island. So if the rest of the team fight isn't forming around Sodos, it could be difficult. But just F6, they want to start that situation around the Gold Fury. Crushes down, and look how quickly just F6 have done the objective. Lastimics, he's rotated on over here as well, but he is quite low, and the rest of just F6 have to leave this fight. They quickly make quick work of that Gold Fury.
Yeah, that's just a good call. Coerce, specifically coming down from Rotwin, but that's the follow-up. Lastimics is getting pulled back in.
Whoa, that looked like a squishy King Arthur there. Somehow it's Tank Boots, Gaia, and Void Shield, and still looked like that health bar disappeared. Accounting department find themselves a pick, now work themselves under the tier 1 tower here. To blink forward, Kalas into the back line has found Sodos, who will dash away thanks to the beads. Ice, up, down in the back, has found a few with his ultimate here, and look at the onslaught from accounting department. Death has arrived for just F6. Worst Turtle will trade back 1, but Rotwin, the last member standing against a deicide.
It's been a while since I've seen a fight that was so worthwhile for one side, then tanked completely like that. I mean, you lose 4. Yeah, you get the Gold Fury. Technically, you kill off Ice, but at the end of the day, you're still worse off. Yeah, now you're about to lose the Fire Giant. I think they had a really good fight. Lastimics gets caught out, and I like the fact that they go to defend, but I think you let that tier 1 fall. I don't think you want to go back into that fight any other way. The accounting department just eat you apart. It was a good call from Kalas to get the pull. They burned the Lastimics, like you said, way faster than it feels like it should. Now they get a tower, a Fire Giant, and theoretically off the back of a Fire Giant, a few more towers on top of it. Losing the Gold Fury is just a drop in the pond for what they're about to be able to do to the map.
It feels like I wouldn't say we were questioning the Chernobog first pick. We were like, here's maybe why, because it's a bit unconventional given some of the priority that we've seen at the SPL level. It feels like Okeanos has made that first pick worth it and then some with the way that this Chernobog has played so far this game. The rotations off the ultimate have been perfect in trading back kills. I mean, and it's always worth mentioning, I think it's Aggro that says, you know, whenever the backliner's having a great game and are able to free cast like that, you have to give shouts to the front line, and I think that's absolutely the case here so far for Accounting Department. But Okeanos is having himself a game so far. 20 minutes in, 3-1-4 on this Chernobog, building into a little bit of crit towards the back end. It's been such a game changer, it feels like, in every stage of the game.
Yeah, the Wind Demon, now that it's online, granted it's online for Toddy as well, and theoretically it synergizes a little better with Toddy. But what we're seeing out of Okeanos, at least presence-wise, has been a lot more powerful overall. It's also interesting that both of them went Devo's Gauntlets. We saw a lot of Transcendence. I think that's just more of a metric for who these hunters are, as opposed, like, I don't think Chernobog and Jingwei are going to be your Transcendence builders. But I like the fact that they have this lifesteal. At least here for Okeanos, it's kept him in the fight a lot longer.
Wow, we are 20 minutes in, and this Fire Giant has about 2.5 minutes left until it times out, and Accounting Department are looking towards the left side. Phoenix here, there's a route that's connected onto Sotos, forces the dash away from this Scylla. Phoenix feels like it doesn't have much life left in it, and the left side Phoenix will go down, and Accounting Department will back themselves away, look towards the mid lane and the right side, which both have tier 2 towers left standing. There's an interesting defense there, Gore. It seems like Just F6 were content kind of poking and prodding, but maybe sensing if you lose a fight there, the game's over.
It's something, you lose the Phoenix, yeah, it hurts, but it's not done. You lose the fight, that Titan's dead right now. It doesn't necessarily matter that you have 2 towers standing. It's still squishy enough, especially with Fire Giant, to be able to knock it down. Wouldn't be surprised to see the pressure Accounting Department have. Ice is kind of where I'm keeping my eyes on. Also, Worst Turtle, look how deep he is.
Yeah,
and
wow.
Yeah, you might get to play Distraction here. You might even pull Accounting Department away if they noticed you, but I don't know what the goal is for Worst Turtle. I guess right now it's an invade. He's going to strip away experience and potentially a speed buff, all while losing a tier 2.
Still a minute and 15 seconds left for Accounting Department. I was wondering what direction they would look to go. There was maybe a chance, if they rode that wave in, Accounting Department, that they would have been able to push in, grab themselves a Phoenix, because look at what Just F6 are doing. They are grouping up between the tier 1 and tier 2 tower here, but it's only 3, soon to be 4 of the Just F6 team members. Listimic still back in his own jungle. Wolfie's about to get dove here. The trap is sprung. Oh no, it's so unfortunate for Just F6. They walk forward too soon, and now Sotos being run down. Deathwalker finds the opening kill, and it's a big lockdown on the backside. Worst Turtle inches away from being stunned on out, and Aegis will save his life a little longer, but Ice grabs one. It's a killing spree for Kalas, and it's a trap going the other way.
I mean, that was really good setup into, unfortunately, like you said, just too soon execution. I think they needed a couple more steps, really, out of anyone on Accounting Department. If it wasn't necessarily a difficult defense before, now this one's going to come up to Toddy. You got to go big or go home.
Yeah, Toddy, the Jingwei, has been quiet so far here this game. It's got to be massive damage, but the only massive damage we've got is Accounting Department putting it in onto the Titan, and in 23 minutes this one will come to a close. It was first blood for Just F6 score, but I think the trend that then got established was that Accounting Department was never going to let any of those individual kills go individually outside of the first blood. It felt like every single one was at least traded back with one of Accounting Department's own.
I think that was one of those moments, especially at the end, where you're going to have to make a Hail Mary play. It's just where are you going to make it? Fire Giant pit in your base or right outside their tier 2. If that takes just a little bit longer before it gets jumped, they actually probably come out of that with a couple of kills and maybe surprise Accounting Department.
Right.
Might even be able to swing that into a Fire Giant, something interesting for the latter half of the game, but that just goes to show seconds matter. Even just a small 2-second window there all of a sudden collapses the plan.
I was going to say it was a exclamation point Hail Mary type move in chat, but Just F6 had to have been in control of the game to throw it, so like it was a Hail Mary attempt, but I don't think it's a whoa, look at that throw type moment from Just F6. A good thought. Didn't work out. Accounting Department, they take game number 1. Gormizer and I will take a break. We'll be back for game 2.
What your crew think? And your moms probably think I'm a bastard. Your pops probably want to beat my to death and take a in my casket. But I got sick of fighting, bickering, fussing over nothing, cussing. Instead of watching the death of discussions that we once had, days that we once spent in the backseat of our cars, reading poets at sunset. It's funny how love can fall out the foreground, get pushed into the back of your mind. We used to twist a spliff and laugh and relax. Now you crying, and I'm trying to find the reasons. So I ask, does forever ever happen, or is it always fade to black? I can't stay. No, I always gotta go. Playing house, this ain't a home with my soul. On the road, I can't stay. No, I always gotta go. Playing house, this ain't a home with my soul. On the road.
I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking. Fresh out the rat like Neiman. And I'm still tryna fight my demons. Cause we all gotta act like Tina. That's why I gotta ride with the Nina. Outside, it's a war going on. Make me put my hands on my head like the Macarena. They want you walking on board like Kima. And give a F to you like John Cena. Putting blood on the brand new Beamer. Tryna earn they stripes like Adidas. You get cold when you ride with the heater. It'll turn you to a dog like a Keeta. And expose with cat like a cheetah. They smoke my partner like reefer. Dímelo porque o no entiendo. Mi gente must really need Jesus. He shed real blood, I never seen the crypt and I believe it. It's too easy. Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Y'all just talk, don't live it. And just took that route that's seen it. Now I'm so outspoken like Reason. Jimmy Neutron, boy, young G's. And I'm a self-made man out of Sweden. And it's still off top, I'm tweaking. But I still gotta fight my demons. I ain't no good, I'm evil. I ain't been clean since Eden. It's a war going on outside. Make you put your hands on your head like the Macarena. That's why I gotta watch my demeanor. You know they locking up blacks and Latinos. It's the same old game, ain't nothing really changed but the mileage on the meter of the Beamer. You get cold when you ride with the heater. It'll turn you to a dog like a Keeta. And expose with cat like a cheetah. They smoke my partner like reefer. Dímelo porque o no entiendo. Mi gente must really need Jesus. He shed real blood, I never seen it.
Bit of a stomp there in game number one from the accounting department. It felt like kind of a quiet stomp, though, Gore. I mean, it wasn't this, like, knockdown, drag-out type of game, but, like, very quietly in the early game, accounting department was pulling this massive gold lead over just F6, and then by the end of it, we're able to win a few big fights and kind of take things home. Dolson, Ramsey, and Goremizer going to break down game number one. What did you see there in game one, Gore, from accounting department?
Honestly, just clean play, right? Like, they knew when to execute. They knew how to burn beads. It didn't necessarily matter. They got a lot of their power picks, despite the fact that no matter how you want to you slice it, like, do you go out and ban any of these? I mean, maybe Deathwalker's Osiris is something that we've seen be ban-worthy in the past. I don't know if that game was the end-all, be-all of Osiris from what we've seen. I know his top end is insane. I think this Ares caused a lot of trouble for them, though, alongside and accompanying, specifically, Ice. It just feels like they had everything down pat. I mean, there was never a point where they felt out of control, except for maybe that one Gold Fury attempt, or not even attempt, confirmed from just F6. It didn't feel like accounting department were ready to respond to that one. And yet it didn't really matter that they weren't able to, because they got the huge fight afterward, plus a tier 1, plus a fire giant. So it didn't really change too much, and I think that was actually this fight where they burn Listimics like it's nothing. And despite losing one person or two people, no, never at once two people, one person every now and then for accounting department, it never felt like things really got out of hand.
No, it was Worst Turtle doing most of the killing there for just F6. And kind of everyone from accounting department doing it on the other side. Wolfie with 2, Deathwalker with 2, everyone else with 3, kind of all even spread there. The only one without a death was Collis on the other side. Early Pridwen there, feeling like the ultimate was going to set up for some good engagements there for his team. Top damage in the game. That one goes over to Deathwalker. So talking about quiet trends, Deathwalker just slowly, quietly kind of chopping away at Listimics and then in a lot of those fights. But Wolfie on this Agni, I think, played very, very well as well. We talked a lot about Okeanos on the Chernobog and the rotation potential that had. And there was a lot of 1-2 punching going on in the mid lane between Ice and Wolfie. So definitely some combos for him to play off of. But that mid lane Agni pick definitely looked good. And it just shows you ban out the Giannis, you ban out the Tiamat. This is going to be a tough team to ban against. Because it seems like all their players have kind of this back pocket pick they're happy to go to.
And honestly, it really is this thing that I think only Wolfie is going to do the same way.
Right.
Like, I don't think there's a lot of other people, especially in Europe, but just in general right now, that are picking up Agni, period. And Wolfie was willing to do it last year. I mean, he picked it up in the Pro League, right? He was willing to stretch out and grab things that might not necessarily be the quote-unquote best, but they made them look good. And so I'm still excited to see what they go with here, because like you said, like, cool, you could ban Giannis, Tiamat, Merlin, Scylla, all of the above here, and I still think accounting department would be just fine with it.
Yeah, I do feel that way as well. Sobek, Athena taken away by just F6. Though some changes to Athena Gore, but still towards the top of those priority charts. Ramsey unhappy with the state of the bans here so far. Heimdall, what do you think? We happy with the Heimdall ban?
I think so.
I think dead stare looks good according to Ramsey there, Gore.
Yeah. Man, yes and no. That Chernobog first pick came through, and I think it had enough of an impact that you need to be a little more worried about it. But I also think that you're looking at Heimdall being one of the more prevalent hunters right now. Very safe, very good against Jingwei. So it makes sense to potentially try and take that away. The thing I'm not going to get, I'm going to go ahead and break this down for you. First pick Jingwei, I'm not feeling it. King Arthur was good for you. Tiamat's available. The Giannis is available. Like, there's so many junglers available. There's so much that's on the table right now. Jingwei is a virtual non-factor to me. I don't understand any reason to put her up that high.
Yeah, that's a great point there, Gore. I mean, plenty of flexibility left in the Hunter draft. Osiris, okay, so Osiris has 10 games played, 60% win rate, which is very good at this level of play. I wonder how many of those games are Deathwalker. I have to imagine most of them probably are. But look, accounting department, they're in a spot where they can just kind of run back their previous few picks here. Just F6 have, they haven't so much adapted the bans from their first game to counteract what accounting department are bringing to the table. Now, that said, maybe the Sobek, the Athena, the Heimdall would have made game 1 look even worse if accounting department had those picks. So
yeah,
I think you can see some value there. We've obviously talked about the Heimdall ban there a little bit. And just F6 will still get that King Arthur, and they will still get the Fafnir over to their side there, Gore. So some of the core of that just F6 team starting to form once more here for game 2.
Yeah, now, so if we're looking at this like at a blanket, right now, the 3 picks for Just S6, 3 picks for accounting department, both exactly the same as what we had, at least, like, not in order, but 3/5 of the teams that we had in the last game. I don't think this is a game you want to play if you're Just F6. Like, I mean,
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
It's one thing if you're really close and like, oh man, we lost at the very end, but it worked for us the rest of the time. You were losing. Like, you lost the game for a long portion of it. The only time it felt like you had control was because of the Fafnir combo. So I really need these last 2 picks to be a very big divergence from what they've picked up. And they banned the Scylla, so they are changing things up.
And it's got to be an E set now for the accounting department. So Scylla taken away, forced into something different. Could have been the Giannis, but instead E set comes to mind here, or comes to the table here, and then Discordia over on the other side. So we're going to get a different look at that mid lane matchup, Gore, from what we did have there in game number 1. E-set for Wolfie instead of the Scylla, and then Discordia over for Sodos instead of the Scylla that we saw in game 1. Agni is what I'm saying. Wolfie had the Agni in game number 1. I don't know. Yeah. I'm all over the place right now. Ratatoskr, though, for Worst Turtle is going to round out the draft now for Just F6, and then Sylvanas looking like out of the jungle for Ice score one more time here for the accounting department in game 2.
No, and you know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm excited to see. I think that there's something to be said about Elysium being able to handle this a lot easier. Like, it's one of those things, like, if you come in and you play this against, top teams in the SBL, they probably pick apart your jungle. I think there's a lot of merits to what Sylvanas can bring. I think there's a lot of downsides to what Sylvanas can bring. He's not very mobile. He's very telegraphed in what he's going to do, but he is really good at setup, and so I'm excited to see if this is a change of pace for Ice compared to last week. If it ends up being 4 levels down again, I want to know what it is, because I think we didn't get to see the true fruition of what they obviously must be trying out, because they wouldn't go back to it a second time. And this is where we can talk about the early game clear. I mean, think about it when it comes down to camp clear. A Mannequin Scepter, Sylvanas, who had AoE autos. Like, look, farming is not going to be his issue early on.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Gore. And a good pickup for Ice. It's such an interesting item. Look, I like Mannequin Scepter. There's something about, like, igniting people as you whack on them that just feels so satisfying, I think. So I want to see this one work out for Ice out of the jungle here. And it provides such an interesting playstyle to play against, doesn't it? Where if you're just F6, you're probably so used to playing against junglers that, jump into your lane, they have this global presence. It's a Robin in game 1 who just leaps on you, uses the Mystic Rush. Sylvanas just kind of walks at you and tries to pull you, right? I mean, if you can dodge the pull, feels like some mitigation there on the pressure that Ice is going to be able to put out. But I think the Blink then maybe helps close that gap a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, again, I'm actually really interested, because if they pick this 1 week and it's just an off match, it's like, okay, whatever, like they were just trying something out, see how fun it is. If you pick it twice, that's typically the sign that you have something in mind or that it's worked somewhere and you're trying to figure it out. This is the only time I think that I can actually use this. So Sylvanas' passive is borderline useless in the sense that there are very few times where you think it is helpful, and it is only against certain gods in the game, and specifically when you're playing in Smite, if you're in the duo lane, it's really only useful against the support early on.
Look at that, he got a pull over on the Sodos. I don't know, there's something just so satisfying about it. I think it's just, I know, I was excited. Granted, it's level 2, so Wolfie had limited follow-up as far as damage goes. That's just so funny, though. Ice just kind of walks in the lane, grabs a pull on the Sodos. Beads are now off this Discordia, so now for the next 135 seconds or so, maybe a return pressure for Ice here out of the mid lane, and Ice is just kind of hanging around, but he'll rotate over. So left-hand side, nearly a solo kill for Listimics over on the right-hand side of the map. Deathwalker will stay alive. That's a little bit different from what we saw in game 1, Gore. It felt like Deathwalker pretty consistently had been able to find lane bully pressure on this King Arthur, not something I'm used to saying. Was kind of self-invading some of those blue buffs, but action over on the left-hand side of the map as well. Looks like this one fizzles out. 3 members at half HP over on the left.
And this makes me happy because it had to end on a fight so I could go back to what I was saying. Ice is Sylvanas, so technically part of his passive is the AoE basics. That's going to be solid. Of course, right as I decided to start talking about being aggressive over here in the duo lane, Toddy's in danger.
If Okeanos had that ranged burst, Toddy might have maybe been a little bit more nervous there. Collis at level 3, so plenty far enough away from that ultimate. No blink. So I think, Gore, we're safe to talk a little bit about Ice.
I don't know, look at Deathwalker.
Oh, no!
He doesn't necessarily want to. I think this is something he's not too safe. There's a mid laner coming over here to visit him as well.
Well, that's totally my fault. I said we were safe to talk about it. Deathwalker, under the threat of 3, will fall for first blood on Just F6, and Worst Turtle yet again find first blood here, but this time in game 2.
And now we'll be safe. I'll be less verbose about it. Ice Ice's passive is going to be really solid against the solo laner and the jungler. They're going to have to melee him. It should proc occasionally. It can only proc once every 12 seconds, but it's something that I expect to see a little more than you'd see in the duo lane. And that's why I said borderline useless, not completely useless. So maybe something that could either save Ice Ice or maybe even help if Listimics or Wursturtle are using it for their fallback. The problem is now, I think you're going to start seeing the presence and pressure that comes through. Yeah, you've got some good damage. That Mannequin Scepter's actually hitting a lot harder here than I thought it would.
Ooh, if that grab would have hit, Listimics definitely falls
nice
there for a return kill. But some early pressure from the Sylvanas, but early pressure on the left-hand side of the map as well. Watch out, Wursturtle up into the sky. Okeanos about to get 3-manned, and now the Ratatosker showing some of that semi-global presence as well. And the jungler for just F6. Behind in levels, granted, Gore, but still ahead in kills with 2.
It's actually impressive to see that Ice. Well, I guess it makes sense. Ice, the Mannequin Scepter, Sylvanas, AoEs, farm is #1. That's almost all I can think about for the first few levels here. Whereas the 2 kills that have been picked up, Wursturtle though on a much better trajectory, especially as Ratatosker. This is the early game. You should be running it anyway. So it's good to see that he's being proactive in terms of playstyle. Causing a lot of trouble over there for the accounting department. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, considering they're still invading jungle buffs and things like that. But there's definitely going to be a little bit of pressure. It's also nice to see this Eset in the mid lane. I can't remember the last time we've actually seen her there, because Sino loves to play her in the jungler. And I think that Wolfie, again, it's not someone that maybe you think of as the top-end kill machine coming out of the mid lane, but she's got a sneaky amount of damage. I think that Spirit Ball specifically might be one of the highest, or at least it feels like, one of the highest damaging abilities in the game. It might just be because of the stun that comes on the other side. A max range Spirit Ball does 1.5x the damage as just, if you pop it out in front of you real fast. So definitely something that's worth noting here for Wolfie in terms of damage output. Plus Circle Protection's the best, hands down, objective secure, period, because it heals your team as well.
Whoa, look at Sotos here. He is just being chased down by the accounting department. A ranged route from Ice Ice will connect, and Sotos will fall. Beads, dash, all of it used by the Discordia. But now Circle of Protection drops down from Wolfie, and one more will go down, and Kalas rotates over towards the mid lane. Big 3-man stun from Wursturtle, but is it enough? Kalas says no, as Wursturtle's going to have to use the ultimate to get into the sky, but it's a knock-up from Ice Ice on the background. One by one, just F6 funnel in, and one by one, just F6 will fall.
That's the best descriptor for it. Like, I could not describe that fight any better than what you just said. One by one, they maundered in, like Sotos, then Rotwin, then Toddy, then Wursturtle. I guess there was periods of time where technically in the middle of that they had, 1 to 2 people actually engaging, but for the most part it felt like just going down a checklist for the accounting department. They might even be able to continue doing so. I don't know, Wolfie doesn't have that much mana to work with right now, so it feels like it might just be a retreat from accounting department, but that is a very dangerous and devastating fight, I'd say, for accounting department.
Yep.
All on the back of a red buff invade, successfully taken by Sotos. I think that's part of why it is. They were frustrated with him stripping that away from Wolfie. But it definitely didn't pay off. 2 kills onto the Ares, 2 kills onto the Sylvanas out of the jungle. I think it just goes to showcase accounting department will not relax for even a second. If they smell blood in the water, they are going to collapse in on you very quickly.
Yeah, I think that's an important takeaway there, Gore, that Ice Ice has now 4 affected kills. Wolfie has 4 affected kills. Kalas has 3. Okeanos had an affected kill in that fight. So everyone but Deathwalker gets a little nudge in the right direction from accounting department. A few kills affected for a couple more members of the accounting department than others, but important that everyone got a little nudge. And now Rotwin gets nudged in the wrong direction, pulled back into the fight. Deathwalker being looked at by a couple over here on the right-hand side. Wursturtle doesn't have the ultimate to follow up. Looking for the range stun, and Wolfie's got it. God, that feels far away, doesn't it? Probably Rotwin didn't expect that Spirit Ball is going to connect from there. That'll be some interesting setup, I think, here in this game. Wolfie hitting a long range stun, Ice Ice there, able to get a grab on the back end of it, something like that. I'm interested to see how accounting department are able to play off of that. Now it's an Apple of Discord thrown out into the mid lane, up down from Wursturtle, but Circle of Protection keeps Kalas alive. The bait and switch happens, and the bait and switch works here. It's a Strife to pull in a couple The accounting department have already found the opening pick.
Okay, look, I'm gonna tell you, Collis, like, I see red in your health bar, and he turned around to keep going in that fight, recognizing the presence he could have as Ares. Like, that is bravery, but also, something worth noting, not only Circle of Protection heals that can come through, it's a big burst, but Sylvanas heals. I mean, that's something that I typically am used to talking about, the support also getting that, but it is something here that Collis is going to be able to benefit from. Not maybe the biggest difference maker. I don't know that Ice is going to be focused on healing. The damage number from that tick is probably going to be a little more important to him, but it's definitely something that's going to be helpful for them to stay in team fights.
It's just so tough. Just F6. Probably feel like the right-hand side is the only place where they can find safe pressure, but Deathwalker now again has walked away from the 2v1 that Listimics and one other of Just F6 had tried to put on him. This time it was Rotwin. But the Osiris has reached a point now where maybe tanky enough to stay alive underneath a lot of that pressure. Worst Turtle is close by to Okeanos, who will be able to walk away from this one. Had beads, did not have the ultimate, but the ability to get in and out of walls, so important there. Spending a lot of time over here is Worst Turtle. Doesn't have the ultimate core, so just have to be good old-fashioned engage like this. Found the stun, but Okeanos, again as mentioned, will be able to find the root and waste a little bit more of this Stratatosker's time.
Yeah, had his beads. Ult was about to come up. It's one of those things that you don't want to really collapse in on Okeanos there. But they've got that tier 1. This is where their pressure actually exists. I think this is where they should be playing, and it's a lot of control, a lot of burn on the Ice. And that's what I want to see Just F6. Like, if that Gold Fury was up, I would argue that you could start going for it right now.
Whoa, Okeanos drops down, and I have no idea where Sotos just went. There is no Ice in this fight, but it's a 3v3 otherwise. Okeanos kiting his way backwards. But look at Toddy, who's got the damage. Up and over goes to Jingwei. Rotwin being burned away down onto the ground as Worst Turtle drops back to earth to the tune of 1. It's a double kill for Toddy, looking for the autos, and he'll grab 3, and immediately Just F6. Not to the Fury, but they'll get a greater Scorpion.
I mean, God, I wish they had something bigger they could get after that. That was such a good fight from them the first time.
Great fight.
I think I can truly say that in the last, 10 minutes plus game number 1, where that one was just clean from them. Maybe not as clean as they would like. They do still lose a couple members, but a triple kill for Toddy is a really big win for them. They've got a lot of pressure on left. Like, utilize what you are already winning on. Like you had said earlier, it felt like they could only get kills onto Deathwalker, but his tower's still up. Mid tower is still up. That tier 1 on left is gone. That gives you a lot of wiggle room to control the jungle over there. Not just purple buff and red buff invades, but now looking towards specifically that Fury. You have to be careful with your engagements, or else you're just going to get caught out. They should be able to get out of here. Maybe I'm speaking too soon for Rotwin. The downside is that as long as Wolfie is alive and as ESET is around, Circle Protection's on a relatively low cooldown, or at least it feels like it right now because it's already coming back up. It's going to be the biggest objective clear in the game, and that's now Just F6's job to dance around that, as opposed to accounting department having to figure out how to beat something like I'm a Monster as they did last game.
Gor, I know you're a big support guy. Do you think the close range pulls are sometimes harder than the long range ones?
Yes.
Because that was just so. There was something funny about it. You know, it's gonna happen from time to time. The Rotwin like inches away from Ice, and then the pull is just wide right when they're a couple feet away from another. But I think that like sometimes the close ones are sort of the tough ones to hit.
Yeah, like when there's like the movement speed. This is where things get really weird. The velocity of a Sylvanas pull. Okay, I don't know what it is. I can't tell you how fast in units it moves, but I can tell you very carefully that I can predict where you're moving at max range for a Sylvanas pull 10 times better than I can predict if you're hugging me. I will, like, granted, the upside is if they're hugging you, one, maybe they melee auto you, they get rooted by your passive, or you just root them and then you can hit it. But it is those long-range ones, unless it's something like that, where it's a dash from Sotos that really gets you out of there, feels a lot more comfortable and confident. So I like the long-range pulls more. And I like that Ice is being a lot more willing to throw them out there. Plus, like, a lot of people, depending on how long you've been playing Smite, you won't remember this, but in the way before time, Arachne's ult was just a better Sylvanas pull. I think it was a lower, or like slightly longer cooldown than Sylvanas pull, but it had slightly longer range. It was something that was interesting. I think Sylvanas brings a better dynamic. Granted, again, maybe tweak the passive a little bit. That'd be kind of fun. But otherwise, I personally love Sylvanas' kit. And that pull, that's a scary thing. Hey, you're talking about burning beats. Ares and Sylvanas are going to be capable.
Well, damage is the name of the game for Ice. Chronos Pendant after Power Boots finds Sylvanas second highest on the team in damage, just behind the Ratatosker and the King Arthur over on the other side. Nice double stun there. It's a follow-up damage. Listimics and Deathwalker continue to do battle over here on the right. And this is how I think we expected more of this King Arthur Osiris matchup to go. One level lead for Listimics. Just F6 again, start up the Gold Fury this time. 3-man knockup from Ice. And Okeanos will join the fight in the backline thanks to his ultimate. It's a double pull right back through from Kalas in the accounting department. Find a couple of picks. It's that big chain of CC that the accounting department are able to put down, and Worst Turtle won't steal. Accounting department get a couple kills and the Fury.
It's dangerous territory right now if you're looking at just F6. I mean, this is a really solid, not even, I was going to say solid lead, then I looked at the gold numbers. It is 100 gold, really, for accounting department, but it feels a little bit stronger for them, doesn't it? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the control, maybe it's the late game. This King Arthur has a lot of potential, but it does start to feel like, at least in mid, things are slipping away. The 0-1 and 9 there for Wolfie. I really love the way ESET transitions into team fights, so I think this is going to be a very dangerous territory for just F6. I think Discordia can work well in Chaos, kind of fits perfectly with the lore, but I don't know that they're creating enough and sowing enough discourse on the side of just F6 to really let Sotos flourish. And unless Toddy gets another, triple kill, I don't know that they're going to be finding those big swings, and I think they have a lot of pressure on left, but there's not a lot to do over here anymore, Dave, so it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, you had a chance to say sow enough discord, and you chose not to say it there, Gore, so I'm slightly disappointed in you, but I think your point still stands properly, and I will happily still cast the second set of SPL today with you, but we've got to get through this one first. Toddy, maybe the man on just F6, who can push the team over the finish line here. 3-1-2 on the Jingwei, but you're going to need this fight to go well. The carries making their way over from the mid lane. Wolfie dove in the back line, but look at the circle of protection and the killing power that it provides. Wolfie has found the opening kill on a Rotwin Deathwalker with the second. A big up-down from Worst Turtle maybe turns this fight around, but we've seen this story before. The accounting department will slowly burn away those health bars.
I mean, that's just, again, good fight from him. Look how low Wolfie is, and you're not able to get the kill. Look how low Toddy is.
Oh, man.
And that's the most unfortunate Ice. That is the downside. The synergy between the two, depending on how things go. Maybe not as clean as can be. But definitely still fun to watch. Wolfie's going to be able to heal up here, no problem anyway, thanks to Sylvanas. This just feels like a good team fight, despite some let's call them mishaps between Ice and Wolfie in terms of securing kills.
Fire Giant gets taken now by the accounting department. 16 and some change minutes into this game. Worst Turtle's just going to have to go back, farm his way in. And I think this is, frustration's not the right word, but this has kind of been our assessment of just F6. That's what we talked about early on the desk, where they've shown signs of life in these games. And then come team fight time, just kind of fall by the wayside to some of the teams that are towards the top half of the league as far as standings go. Where just F6, they were in control, they had the early kills, they were sweeping things back, even despite some answers from accounting department. And then the last two fights, Gore, I've just felt like this one's starting to get a bit out of control yet again. It's almost the same script as what game number 1 had. For accounting department, I mean, look at that steep downward swing. That's a 3-4 minute span. That 5,000 gold and 7,000 XP of an advantage have been built up here for the accounting department. And every single tower is still on the map, except for tier 1 on the right-hand side. This gold lead is just going to feel worse and worse for just F6 over the next 3-4 minutes or so.
What is that, 5,500 gold? That's just in towers standing on the side of just F6. It's a lot of money that you can throw into your pockets, and hopefully my quick maths there is accurate. That's the real downside that's going to be problematic, I guess is the best term for just F6. I mean, look, you're already slightly behind. The items already starting to feel solid for accounting department here. They've got 3 sentry wards that I'm not even sure they need right now in their inventories. With 5 members with a Fire Giant, we saw how easily they took a Phoenix last time, and Just F6 are in way worse position to fight here. I don't know if they can defend this one as truly as they'd like.
Yeah, Just F6 have to be careful. Remember, they were in game number 1. The circle protection proving handy now, but Wolfie in the backline dove by Worst Turtle, and Worst Turtle's picked up the kill onto the east set. A great target to give Just F6 a fighting chance, but you gotta look at Okeanos as well. The Chernobog already has 2. The mid lane Phoenix melting away. The pull, the root from Ice awaiting in the wings. But accounting department want no more. They'll get the mid lane Phoenix and slowly kite away.
Look, there's a ton of fun things to talk about here, and I think we talked about it a lot in game 1, but Okeanos is 5-2 and 6. Like, I think this has been a very good set for Okeanos, to say the least. Being able to kind of transport all across the map, help out his team has been helpful. I'll also give credit, Worst Turtle did a really good job there. He was not in that fight for the beginning of it, but his loop around worked out well.
Oh, no.
Definitely a lot better than this fight has gone for Just F6. I think they try to just get into their jungle. If I'm looking at this, do I go Oni, Fury first, then Towers? I don't know. There's a lot on the table. It's kind of like sitting at a buffet when you're really hungry.
Success.
You don't know where exactly you want to go first. It looks like accounting department, maybe they even back after this. I don't know. They have a minute left on a Fire Giant. It's like just enough time that you could probably get another Phoenix, but not enough that you can feel super confident in your capabilities.
Right. Worst Turtle just used the Ratatosker ultimate. Maybe to engage on Wolfie. Wolfie, we're looking for the jungler, but Just F6 jungler will be able to make it back to base. Plenty safe here. Heartseeker picked up for the Ratatosker, and Gore, that was maybe the best look at a fight for Just F6 that we saw, and it still went pretty drastically bad. And Wolfie was dove in the back line, given a second death of the game by Worst Turtle. That's what you expect from this Ratatosker. Unfortunately, it feels like there's way too many priority targets on accounting department. You gotta kill Wolfie despite being 1-2 and 14, and then you also have to worry about Okeanos, who's 6-2 and 6. Apparently, Kalas and Ice on the Ares and Sylvanas are gonna be putting out serious damage numbers as well. All the while, Deathwalker is chopping away. I mean, it is a steep hill to climb here for Just F6. See if they can maybe defend this left side Phoenix. As Kalas works his way in, gets stunned down. Stuns exchanged on the front line of this fight. The apple tossed on out by Sotos. The transformation from Watwin saves his life a little bit longer. Could this be a big pull? One is Sotos brought back in. And it's unfortunate for Sotos that it's himself and the rest of accounting department surge in.
I mean, imagine landing in the middle of a full charge circle of protection. You're not going to live through that one. That Phoenix should be down. The numbers advantage, the healing, a good pull even as well from Ice. It's with Fireman, I think they could push for the end here.
They could, with Sotos down for 28 seconds or so. Looks like accounting department realizing that the Fire Giant is back up here in less than a minute. Gonna let these minions do their work and not try to roll the dice. Game 1 was 23 or so minute score. Sure feels like Game 2 is starting to head in that same direction, or is already headed and is just waiting to pull off at the final destination. There's a Pyromancer gonna be there shortly after as well. Let's buy up some of those final items. Rod of Tahuti for Wolfie. Most recently completed item. We'll get ourselves into a power position to maybe win a fight around this FG, and it's going to be interesting to see if Just F6 try to defend the FG, or feel that they can maybe have a better chance under their Phoenix or their Titan.
Look, if they can, so they're pushing up their waves pretty hard. I think you just go over there. Like, you've been losing the fights under your Phoenixes, you've been losing your fights in your jungle, you've been losing your fights pretty much everywhere except for the very beginning of this game. I almost think, and unfortunately, they're pushing up over there on left. They didn't necessarily have time to transcend themselves to the right side of the map. I think this is one of those moments where you kind of break your back over it. Like, you are already in the bottom 2. You're already going to the relegation stage against the SOC teams. I think if you just make accounting department's life hell, that's the best you could really get in this game. Accounting department are still fighting for something, right? I mean, you're still trying to go to the circuit playoffs here if you qualify for those top 2. I looked it up because I was curious. I was like, yeah, you know, I know the playoffs are going to be like NA, they're EU, there's some SOC in there. I forgot about the $130,000 prize pool that they're going to be competing for as well. That's a pretty big motivator in winning this game in this set. And that feels like going to be fueling accounting department a little bit more here.
Accounting department will hope to make no mistakes. Big knockups from Toddy, but the circle protection will provide a little burst healing. Good strike from Sotos. The apple gets tossed out as well. Toddy's found the opening kill onto Ice. Will Worst Turtle extend this game further? The health bar's just a bit too low. Can the accounting department disengage, though. That's the big question. If just F6 are able to find these kills, the rest of this game becomes much more interesting. It's an airstrike from Toddy to close that gap. It's a silence on the back end, a big stun as well. Has the Jingwei gone too far forward? Yes. And Wolfie puts one down.
Oh no, the healing coming back to bite him now. The damage is just locking him down, Dave. They're going to be able to find one, then another, and soon enough it might be a deicide.
It is going to be a deicide. It's a double kill for Okeanos, and that's just got to be game here. 23.5 minutes in. Accounting department backpedal away, and that seems like the story of this set. So many times where accounting department faked kind of going back. They kind of have a slow starter to some of these fights, but the sustain and the re-engage was just way too much. Nobody from Just F6 within 20 or so seconds of respawning. And the Titan goes down here. Accounting department, Gore, for the time being, with a 1-game lead over Pandemonium.
So sometimes it's BM to step into the fountain, you take a little bit of damage. The most BM you can get, though, is what accounting department did there. They and there's not a lot of times in Smite you get to know this, so this is a nice PSA out there for everybody. You know, the more you know can go over after.
Are you teaching people how to BM, Gore? Is that what you're about to do?
You can buy items in your enemy's fountain, and that's exactly what accounting department did. I saw a dominance finished there for specifically Okeanos, a couple of other items that were bought inside Just F6's fountain before they killed the Titan while the respawns are still coming through. Like, that is about as max. Like, if you're min-maxing BM, I think that's about as max as you can get.
I wonder if there's a world where you're finishing the game and you go into the fountain, you buy the alternate timeline, and then the fountain kills you and you come back to life, and I don't know, that might be the most BM. I want to see someone try that. If the game is going in that direction. Accounting department, they come out on top of this one in similar fashion to game number 1. We're going to send it to a break, and when we come back, we'll break it down.
How you gon' lie when you look me in my eyes and you show me your facade? Show me your facade. How you gon' lie when you look me in my eyes and you show me your facade? Show me your facade. You a lie. You a front. You say anything long as you get what you want. Tryna play me like a fool. Homie, I am not a clown. It ain't nothing but a game, cause all you do is mess around. Now I'm on the verge of a meltdown. 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 I should've known when I met her back at Midtown, at Dogwood, when I was going through a rough patch, but it's all good. I even told her about the dark times I had in childhood when we was driving off of I-10 in Kirkwood. Now all that time I never get it back. You wanted that. Used to hate when I didn't wanna hang. I noticed that. Used to talking about your ex Jake with your next Jack. Used to messing with them white boys. Now she went black. Wait a minute. Guess you went and got yourself a real life. Got yourself some booty shots and lip filler. You just wanna make a rapper beat like Dilla. You ain't nothing nice, radiator, cause up close, baby, you a ghost. You a demon, and you should float. Get out the way, and just go, and just go, and just float, float, float. How you gon' lie when you looking in my eyes and you say you down for the cause, but you really here for the ride? You ain't really feeding no sheep. You're a K9 in disguise. Shoulda never gave you nothing but a funky high five. I know we can't go back in time, but I wish I could rewind and get back all that money that I spent every nickel and dime. Cause you a lie. Oh, you a front. You gon' say anything as long as you get what you want. Went and got yourself a new man. It ain't even been a month. I feel sorry for your boo, cause he don't know what he signed up for. Do he? Ooh, yeah, I heard that you met him at the bar, Louis. Okay, don't try to do him like you tried to do me, baby. You a cold-blooded killer like Stu. Cause up close, baby, you a ghost. You a demon, and you should float. Get out the way, and just go, and just go, and just float. Float like a balloon, apple, empty bottle, cork, styrofoam, and most dead bodies. You killing me, homicide. Look at your lying eyes. I should have been better laced, cause I failed too many times. If money the root of evil, and you call yourself a dime, you gotta be penny wise. 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 Cause up close, baby, you a ghost. You a demon, and you should float. Get out the way, and just go, and just go, and just float. No face, no case, no picture. Full place, big stakes, my dinner. Give it up. Flip that. Canal Street. Flip back. Last week. Old money. This week. New racks. Never buy none more. If I can't afford to gift wrap. Stunning in your foreign car. You keep riding rental tags. Ew. Heard you roll the gasoline, we are not the same. Couple thousand in my pocket, this pocket shit. Rubber bands on my arm, this is not for play. I put 20.
Here's the good news for you and Igor. You can kind of copy and paste our analysis after game number 1 and just sort of put it here after game 2. I don't know if we can just rerun our entire death segment after game 1, but it kind of felt like the exact same there, didn't it? With a couple different picks, that being said, from the accounting department. So maybe you have to look at the relative impact of Ice on the Sylvanas, because the rest of the game just kind of got out of control in the same way that it did in game 1.
I think it has hints of greatness. I still think there's going to be moments depending, like, I don't think it's something you're going to whip out, like game 5, everything's on the line, lose and go home. But I do think it showcased, I mean, that's a perfect highlight for it right there. Like, just the setup potential they had between the Ares and the Sylvanas made it very difficult for Just F6 to really fight back. And it made it so much easier. I don't think they needed an easier time, but it made it easier for Wolfie and Okeanu specifically to just run into the game and play for free. I mean, free casting in the back line pretty much consistently. Every now and then Worst Turtle would jump back there and cause some trouble, but like, I don't know that they ever felt stressed because they had a heal and so much pressure from a front line.
I agree. I think the E set was just probably so frustrating to Just F6 this game. That circle of protection, as well as some of the healing from the Sylvanas, seemed to have just slowed down so much of the fighting for Just F6. How many of these highlights is Okeanos just chilling in the front line with everyone else throughout all of the engagement? Most of them, I would argue. 8, 2, and 9 is where Okeanos ends on this Chernobog. 1 death there in game number 1, so 3 total deaths across the 2-game set that we had here. Deathwalker 4, 1, and 7, I think kind of an unsung hero in the front line department. 15,000 damage only behind his teammate Okeanos, and then of course the mid laner Sotos there, who admittedly, Gore, despite having a losing game, was able to put out some good damage numbers on this Discordia.
Still takes top damage in the game. Really solid performance, I would say, at least, like you said, damage-wise. Discordia is good at that, and I think Sotos had a lot of moments where you could see the ghosts of what he was trying to do and what the god could be capable of. But unfortunately, it's kind of one of those things that Discordia can do only so much on her own, right? You need to have those pillars around her as well. And I think, unfortunately, those pillars were a lot stronger and a lot tougher on accounting department. Made it a little more difficult to figure out how exactly to lock down everybody. And I think Ramsey feels about the same way as Just F6, where it's just like, you know what? Maybe we just lay down.
Yeah, she's ready to take a little nap here as we take a look at the schedule that we had this week. Oh, sorry, production. I know you want to see Ramsey here. I'll give her a little pat before we jump onto the schedule. Oh, you want to see schedule, or are you tired? Now we want to see the schedule. Into the schedule we go. Just F6 with the 0-2, excuse me, under the accounting department. Clay Soldiers and Pandemonium. That's the other matchup that's going to be important to look at here as well, because remember, Pandemonium trying to keep pace now in those top couple of spots here in the EU SCC, especially with this win from the accounting department. So 6-3 is where accounting departments stand. Pandemonium need to grab themselves a win over Clay Soldier to keep pace with that top 2 spot. Elysium feels pretty home and free here at this point. I think they might be. I think 10 games is where you start to go if you play every team twice. So Elysium still feeling pretty good here, Gore, but Pandemonium still neck and neck with accounting department.
And this is something, again, when you're looking at it, not just neck and neck, but then when you, like, again, playing, like you said, everyone twice, it comes down to head-to-head, and then there gets to be a lot of murky waters down there. So the best thing for accounting department would be if Pandemonium just outright lose the next ones. Yep. But we'll have to figure out how they tackle that as the week goes on.
Well, Gore, after this, obviously SPL will start at 1 p.m. We're going to jump back into the group stages of the SPL, starting with Group A and a big matchup, Leviathans versus the Titans. Remember, the Leviathans lost their first matchup in this group, Gore.
Yeah.
And their next opponent is the Titans, who've been on a pretty hot streak here. Is there a world where the Leviathans are 0-2 after today? in the group.
Honestly, I could see it happening. I think that they are in a very precarious position. Like, I'm going to quote Hindu because this is absolutely words from his mouth, but we were talking about it while we were watching the Leviathans as they started to lose that set, and he goes, well, it is about that time of the year for the Leviathans to just throw everything and then get back to like being good when Phase 2 starts. Like, maybe it's a little before quote-unquote playoffs, but this is where things tend to start stuttering a little bit more for the Leviathans.
Well, then, I don't know. We're really getting into a very intricate path of things having to happen. But if the Leviathans lose today, then they'd go against the Valkyries for theoretically the last spot in Phase 1 playoffs. Yeah. But the Leviathans, a very confident team, one of the best, if not the best teams in the league. So I'm excited to watch Leviathans versus Titans. That one coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So you got about 40 minutes to go grab your snacks, get some food ready to go, and then settle in for a long day of exciting SPL action. So make sure to sit right there. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern time for the SPL.